Google Analytics is a really powerful platform that allows you to see how users from all across the internet engage with your website. There are tons of preset reports that show you all sorts of different metrics of how they engage with your site, whether it's bounce rate, pages viewed, all sorts of different things. We've already talked about how you can use custom segments to break down those reports a little bit further into audiences to see how they compare to each other head to head. But there are some metrics that just don't show up next to each other in the Google Analytics platform, and those would be really helpful to see side by side without having to toggle back and forth between different reports. So today what I want to talk about is how you can set up custom reports in Google Analytics to see exactly the data that you want to see in one view at a glance to make all your decisions much quicker. Let's hop in. Starting in the Google Analytics platform, this is just one of those preset reports that I was talking about earlier. So right now we're in the campaigns report, within the Google Ads report, within the acquisition report in Google Analytics, and there are a lot of different preset reports you can use, whether it's in the audience section, behavior, conversions. So I encourage you to take a look and see what gives you the best representation of your data. But looking at just the anatomy of this report by itself, it follows a lot of what Google Analytics is always going to show. You'll have your segments up here at the top. You've then got a few different data sets from summary, site usage, clicks, and then you'll have a table view of the performance that you have available here, and you can start to customize this by choosing from the dropdown, and you can also have a secondary metric. And then down below the chart, we have the table view of all of the data. So this is broken down by primary dimension. Right now you can see that it's selected as campaign, which is going to show up here in this column. And then there's a second option for primary dimension as ad group. So this is just what's preset here, and it's already got different stats broken down here. So clicks, CPC, bounce rate, revenue, and there are a lot of customizations you can make within this preset report already. So whether it's choosing the different goals that you want for your conversion section of this report, you can start to adjust for a secondary dimension. So basically having the data of the primary dimension broken out by something different like device, category, if that's what you want. Right now I'll leave this blank. You can even start to see different data sets by scrolling back up and choosing a different data set here. We were originally landed on summary just to show the preset report here, but you can choose anything from site usage, goal set 1, 2, e-commerce. Let's just take a look at clicks and see what that looks like. So now you can see that the chart has stayed the same, but the table down below is different. We've now got different metrics in a different order, and it just helps to customize the view a little bit better. Despite all these different ways you can customize these reports, you still might be missing out on some options of having only a few stats on a specific screen. Maybe you want only a handful of them next to each other that don't show up in the same report. There's a lot of reasons to still customize. So let's start to build a custom report in GA. And I'm going to show you a few different ways to get there. I'm going to show you kind of the long form way first, and we'll build a report from scratch. And then I'll show you a couple of shortcuts that might save you some time in the future. So the first way, the easiest way, the most basic way to get to the custom reports is to head over to customization and click custom reports. So that drops us into the custom reports library. And you can see there are already a number of custom reports available within this account that we've used before. And then we have some options up here at the top of what we can do. First is to build a new custom report. That means build it from scratch, and we'll do that here in just a second. But first I want to show you that just like a few other aspects of Google Analytics, there are some preset options available through a gallery. So let's look at what that looks like. Just like we showed with custom segments, there are a lot of preset reports that you can use. So let's say we just want to filter for all paid search reports. Now you can see that there's a PPC keyword / matched query report that shows up. There's another one for your social traffic, it looks like Twitter, Pinterest, Facebook, LinkedIn, Tumblr, an end-to-end paid search report, all this good stuff. So if you see any of these that you think look valuable, all you need to do is click import and they'll show up in your library and you can start to customize it. But let's go back to the library and show what it looks like to build a report from scratch. So to get started building your report, what I'm going to do is hop up here and just click new custom report. And that lands me in an editor that looks like this. And this is where we're going to spend the bulk of our time today, is in this editor. What I want to do is show you how the different groups match up to that Google Ads report that we looked at earlier to help you understand what each of the different settings are and how they correlate to what it looks like in the end result. So I'm going to do a bit of bouncing back and forth, but hopefully it helps you visualize a little bit better what the end result is going to look like before we run it. So the first thing you can do is give your custom report a title. Right now it just says new custom report. I'm going to leave it at that because I don't need it to be any more specific for this video, to be quite honest. So let's start to jump into the different sections here, this report content. The first thing you'll see here is the tabs. So we have report tab, Add Report tab, and then all the way over on this side we have Duplicate this tab, which we'll show here in just a minute. In the Google Ads report, the Explorer portion here is what is going to be visualized as a tab, and it honestly looks like a tab with this gray line around it. The next thing you can do is name the tab. So right now, Report tab is not super helpful, and I'm actually going to name this Explorer because of the type of report I'm going to put in it. And that leads us down to the next piece where we talk about the type of report. I'm going to create a tab that shows each of these different types so you can understand what they look like, but we're going to start off with Explorer, and then we'll do Flat Table and Map Overlay here in just a second. But the next thing I want to show you are the metric groups, and we already highlighted these a little bit in the Google Ads report. Metric groups are these different sub-reports within the tab. So everything from summary, goal set 1, e-commerce, clicks, these are all the different metric groups. So think of these as effectively different views within that same tab of a Google Analytics report. So the next group is going to be on the dimension drill downs, and you probably have an idea of where these go already, but let's look at what they look like in the Google Ads report. Your dimensions are what's going to show up down here, and it's going to determine what goes into the data table below. Keep that in mind. Basically, you're going to be determining primary dimensions of different reports. The secondary dimensions are always going to have some sort of filter available from a preset list of metrics. Just keep in mind that this is where the dimensions go. Okay, so hopping back into the editor itself, now we need to start putting the metric groups and dimensions together for what we want the report to show. So let's start to put together a report so I can show you what this is going to look like. I'm going to choose the same type of report for a couple different examples. That way you can see the difference between the two and how they are represented in the Google Analytics custom reports. What I want to see is how my campaigns are performing by device over the course of this year. Effectively, what I want to do is see a monthly trending set of data for a few different data points broken down by campaign and device. So let's go ahead and start adding metrics. And when you click Add Metric, you can see that there are some commonly used metrics in here: sessions, bounce rate, users. So let's go ahead and add a few of those. To add one, you just click on what you want. So we'll do sessions, click a second one, do bounce rate, click another one, and we'll add average session duration, just fine. But let's say we also want to add in a few that are a little bit harder to find. We did this in the commonly used section. You can also start to peruse the acquisition, the advertising section. You can start to look through all of the different metrics that are available in here. So let's take a view of what all of that looks like. So acquisition, ad exchange, advertising, behavior, custom metrics, goal conversions, social users, all these different things have subcategories within them. But there are two goals that I want to have in this custom report. So I'm going to go ahead and just search for them because I know that those are a little bit trickier to find. So if you come up to the search bar, you can just type in exactly what you want and add it to your report and it'll pop up. Okay, so now I have the metrics that I want in this report. And let's say that I want to add a second metric group to show a little bit of a different view of the stats that are in here. Just click Add Metric Group, and then again, you can name it something different and start to add your metrics in the same way. We don't need to do that for this example, so I'll just close that out. And now let's start to add dimensions. And this is where we want to start breaking down the data by those three variables I talked about: campaign, device, and month, because that's what I want to see is over the course of this year, how have my campaigns performed for the different device categories. Let's come in here. And I'm just going to type in campaign first. Now you'll see that there is a little bit of an indent here, and that is important, and it has to do with the fact that we're on an Explorer tab. So I'm just going to go ahead and run a little bit more of this together, and then I'll show you why this is important, but just keep in mind that this is effectively a sub-dimension of the campaign piece. So now I'm going to add device, and then I'm going to add month. And those are all the dimensions that I need. There are a couple other things in here. First is the filters, which means that you can start to add a filter in the same way you would filter any other report. If we want to filter for only Google paid search traffic, which is what I want to do here, we would need to go in and find the source medium filter and designate values to have Google Analytics only look for users from that source and medium. So I'm going to choose this option. And now I'm going to leave it as exact because I know that my data is in here in a very specific way. Just come over here and add in the value that you want. And now this report is going to be filtered to only include data from the Google CPC source and medium. You can also choose a drop down to say exclude. And there are lots of different filters you can have available. So just to kind of give you an example, when I open this up, most of the these are exactly the same from the previous dimensions that we looked at. So again, you can add in different filters for people based on time, whether it's the day that they visited, an hour that they visited, whether they came from certain campaigns in your advertising, whatever it is. There are lots of different filters you can have available. For this, I'm going to try and keep it pretty simple. The last customization piece we have here is under views, and this correlates to which Google Analytics account you want this custom report to show up in. Right now it's preset to the one view selected, but if you choose this one little radial dial here, that is all views associated with this account. That means every Google Analytics account and every view within that account that you have access to will have this custom report added to their library. And when you click into it, it'll show the data for that account as it is set up in this custom report. If you end up using the custom report a lot and you find that you have one that you really like that is applicable to lots of different accounts, this is an easy way to add it. But you don't have to add it to all views. Like I said earlier, it presets to one view selected, but if you click this drop down, it opens up a finder of all of the accounts. And again, I'm sorry these are blurred out, but there are little check boxes in here that you can check next to certain profile views, so you can add it to only the accounts that you want to have it added to. For now, I'm going to leave it as just this one view selected. And let's go ahead and run this report so you can see what it looks like. Once it populates, you can see that this is exactly how we set up the report. New custom report is the name of it. I named this tab Explorer. There are no other tabs. There are no other metric groups. Our primary dimension is set to campaign to start. And these are all the metrics that we chose to have show up in our data table below. So now let's start to navigate through this report and start to see the data. Because remember, I wanted it to show me my campaign level performance by device, by month, over the course of the year. So since this is an Explorer report type, remember, and I mentioned that campaign was our primary dimension at the top, but then device and month were sub-dimensions, this is why they're not showing up. What that means is that for each of these reports, it's only going to show the first dimension that we have. So these are campaign names, but then you can tell that this is a blue link. So when I click into this DSA general campaign, the report then filters for only that campaign, and then it shows my secondary dimension that I had in place, which is device category. So now I can see performance by mobile, desktop, and tablet. That's how an Explorer type of report works. And if I click into it even further from here, let's say desktop, now we can see the monthly index for desktop users in this DSA general campaign. And this is how an Explorer type of report works. This is really useful if you're trying to just dig through data and you want to see lots of levels and you click into it without having to see lots and lots of different rows at a time. But it can also be a bit limiting because obviously it is a little bit harder to see trending data. You can start to adjust this report even further, but this is effectively what an Explorer report looks like. All the while, you can use these secondary dimensions. So these are not limited to the dimensions that you set within the custom report. I could come back in here and still add the add content as the secondary dimension if I want to, even though that's not one of the dimensions I chose in the dimension drill down section. So keep that in mind, you can still add secondary dimensions however you would like. So let's say that got you one view, but maybe you want to see data in a little bit different way. Maybe you want to export and try to use things maybe in an actual pivot table instead of in Google Analytics to get a little bit better view. So what I'm going to do is hop over here up into the edit button for the report. And now it takes us right back to that builder that we saw before. So these are all the same settings that we had once we saved it the first time around. And like I said, maybe we took a view of that data in the Explorer and found some things a little bit interesting, but maybe the view was a little bit limiting. Maybe we didn't get what we needed to right out of the Google Analytics interface and we want to take another look. So what you can do here is add another report tab, and it gives you all the same builders as we had before, but you'll see that the filters and views remained the same because the entire report is filtered for that. So when you start to add new tabs, know that the filter is going to stay the same throughout each of the different tabs that you have in place. So let's go ahead and name this the flat table type of report and choose that option. And you'll see that things changed a little bit. The editor changed a little bit, and that is because of the way that the data is going to be shown in the final result. So again, I'm going to build the same type of report trying to see how my campaigns perform by device, by month for this year to date. So let's go ahead and just set that up. Okay, so now we've got our dimensions and our metrics showing, and they're about the same as they were in the Explorer tab of the report. The other thing you'll notice is that the flat table also doesn't have different metric groups. It will show you all of the metrics all at once, and these dimensions are not subdimensions. So what this is going to do is make the report have all of the data that you want visible at once, which, depending on how you're trying to use it, could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. But let's take a look at what it looks like. And now that we are back in our report, it defaulted to the Explorer tab. And again, you can see the data table down below with the blue links for campaign name that we would have to click into. But let's take a look at flat table. So this looks quite a bit different. Our chart has gone away. We no longer have a line chart up here at the top. Now this is just a data table down below. And you'll notice that none of these are blue links. In an effort to try and get this report a little bit easier to view, I'm actually going to filter for just one of the campaigns that's got a generic name, so we don't need to blur things out. Keep in mind that this has 917 line items in this report. So let me go ahead and filter this report for only that one campaign. So now I filtered this for just the DSA General campaign so you guys can see what's going on. And there are now 14 lines of data, and I'm actually going to expand this to see all of them. So this is the benefit of having a flat table type of report. If you want to see things all at once and not have to click into different things, this can be really useful. But again, it can be overwhelming. Remember at the beginning we had 917 lines of data for all of the campaigns by all device categories by all months. That can be a lot to look at. This is a lot easier way to see data, but it's only really useful if you can see all of it at once. So there's a lot of different ways that you can start to filter this. If you just click one of the different columns, it will then sort by the value that's in there, so you can align the data a little bit differently. So now we can see the data is sorted with tablet at the top, then mobile, then desktop. But one of the biggest benefits I actually find is to build a flat table exactly how you need it, and then export the data into an Excel sheet, and then be able to use it in a little bit more nimble fashion, whatever makes the most sense for you. So you can come up here to export and then choose the option of how you want it to export. PDF, you can send it to a Google Sheet, you can send it to Excel, or just download a CSV. And then the data will populate in those reports exactly how you see it here, with column 1 being campaign, column 2 being device, column 3 being month index, and then your stats accordingly. That can be a really easy way to get a report built that you can then manipulate in Excel to get exactly what you want. That to me is the biggest benefit of a flat table report. So we've covered the first two types of reports. Now let's hop back in and look at the third type of report. So we'll just click edit. So once I'm back in the editor, I'm just going to add another report tab, and let's name this one map overlay. You can see that this is grayed out a little bit, and that's because map overlay is disabled. The metrics are incompatible with custom reports containing map overlay. So clicks is not available for that. So what I'm going to do is go back and edit these other two tabs to get rid of the clicks portion so that we can use the custom report how we want to. Okay, now let's hop back into the map overlay, and now we can choose this option for type of report. And again, just like the other time that we switched from Explorer to flat table, going from flat table to map overlay, now this has changed the way that the editor looks and what type of data we can see here. Map overlay obviously means that we're going to do something with a map. There are a few different things we can do here. The zoom level is where you choose how broad of a view you want of the data. You can choose world, continent, subcontinent, country, whatever you want to see here. I'm going to leave this as world just so we can see the biggest subset. And then for dimension, we don't choose any of the other dimensions that we've been seeing for the other pieces here, like campaign, all that good stuff. So this report is not actually going to show campaign by device by month. So keep that in mind, but I do want to show you what this looks like. So we can choose either continent, subcontinent, country, city, any of these different levels. Again, just for the time being, I'm going to leave it as continent. And now we can choose the metrics that we want to see in this report. So again, you can name the metric group that you have. You can also add a secondary metric group. For now, I'm just going to add a couple of metrics in here to get some data in pretty easily. And now let's just add a second metric group just to show what that looks like in the report itself. We've got two different metric groups. You can add a third if you want, but we don't need to for this. So again, our filters are still here, filtering for only Google CPC traffic. And let's go ahead and click save. And again, it pops us back into the Explorer tab. So let's hop over to map overlay. And this is effectively what your map overlay is going to look like. You're going to be able to see the map here at the top. But down at the bottom of the page, you'll also be able to see the data table that accompanies it. So again, we chose continent, users, and bounce rate as the first metric group. And so that's what it's filtered to. So to get a bit of a different view, let's just choose country. And now it's filtered the data table by country, and you can also see that the map up here looks quite a bit different. The color coding is very different. The way to read this is effectively that the lightest blue color is going to be 2, or whatever's over on this side of the bar here, and then the darkest blue is going to be the 232, almost 233,000. So as you come into the map, you can actually hover over and see where the performance is, and you can see that obviously the United States, being the darkest, has most of that traffic. That's all the way at the top end of that scale. But then you can hover over other countries and see that Canada is closer to the other end. And each time you hover over it, if you watch that bar, you'll see that little black arrow kind of show you where this country lands on that continuum. So this is effectively what the map overlay is doing. It's giving you a visual representation by color coding different countries, again, cities, continents, the subcontinent, as to how your metrics were engaged with and how each of these different locations throughout the world. We are in our first metric group and we have users selected. You can choose bounce rate pretty quick, or we can head over into our second metric group. And then although the users in the map are still the same, the data in the data table down below now reflects the 2 metrics that we chose for our second metric group. So that's effectively how you would use custom reports and what they look like, and giving you a little bit of insight into Explorer, flat table, map overlay. But if you'll remember, at the very beginning, I teased on a couple of ways that we can build reports a little bit quicker, maybe cheat a little bit, as opposed to building something from scratch. And we've already talked about one of those. That was importing a template from a gallery. If you want to find something that's already preset, head into the gallery, see what other users within the Google Analytics community have come up with. You can easily import those reports to your library and start to customize as you see fit. But the other option I want to show you is within these preset reports. Remember at the very beginning we talked about this Google Ads campaigns report. Let's say there's a lot that you really like about this and you want to keep a lot of it, but there's only a couple of things that you want to tweak. If you head on over up to this edit button up here, click that, Google Analytics will import the report that you just saw into the custom report builder. So all of these metrics are exactly what we saw in the other area. So again, there's the Explorer tab, the metric groups are summary, site usage, goal set 1 and 2. Then as we scroll down, we can see the e-commerce setting is there. It doesn't have any dimension drill downs because this one was already preset to look at Google campaigns, but you can start to add whatever you want in here. And once you get done with it, you can scroll up, change the name to whatever you want it to be, and once you hit save, this will now populate in your custom reports library so you can come back to it time and again, and it already has a lot of this set up in here for you, so you don't have to go searching and finding different metrics and different views and that sort of thing. It's already in here. So if there is a report that's pre-built that you love within this section here, you just need it tweaked a little bit, it's really easy to have that imported into the custom reports builder and start to tweak it for exactly what you need. Thanks for watching our video. If you thought it was useful, give us a thumbs up below.
We release a new video at least once a week, so if you want to get notified of when a new one comes out, be sure to subscribe to the Paid Media Pros channel.